The Detroit temple was located in an old brick house with the temple room in the third floor attic. The lease was soon to run out, and Govardhan, the temple president, was looking for a new place. He showed Prabhupada photos of likely buildings, one of them a mansion of the late auto industry millionaire Lawrence Fisher. The place was probably too expensive, Govardhan said, but it was, and was located in a bad neighborhood. But Prabhupada was interested. In fact, whatever the devotees cited as bad about the mansion, Prabhupada would say was actually good, or at least could easily be rectified. As for the high crime rate in the area, he said, "You'll have nothing to fear, just chant Hare Krishna and distribute prasadam. Invite all the neighborhood people, thieves and rascals to take prasadam and chant, and you won't have any thefts." Just like when devotees were, I think it was Shyam Sundar in particular, he was, although in other cases too, devotees would be put in reasons why they didn't think they could be a devotee, and Prabhupada wouldn't accept any of the reasons. Or being to jail, it's okay, Krishna's born in jail. I was dealing drugs, I was also dealing drugs, he was a pharmacist. So whatever devotees put forward, Prabhupada would see it as something positive. Devotees emphasized that Detroit was the crime capital of the US, and that the poor slum area where the mansion was located was known for drug trafficking, robberies and murders. But Srila Prabhupada repeated that they should not be afraid. "I lived in the Bowery," he said, and he described how the bums used to urinate on his front door and lie across the doorway. But when he would come to enter the building, they would get up and say, "Yes, sir, come on, sir." Get the place, Prabhupada said, and chant Hare Krishna there 24 hours a day. If a thief comes, we will say, "Yes, first take your sadhana, and then take whatever you want. What do we have?" Srila Prabhupada went to see the mansion with Govardhan, Ambarish, and several GC men. They were met by the owner and a lady who introduced herself as a real estate agent. As the owner guided them on a tour, Prabhupada came to like the estate even more. The palatial building was situated on 4 acres, surrounded by a high stone wall. There were gardens and walkways now in disrepair, as well as fountains and a swimming pool. Some of the devotees thought the place gaudy with the extravagant 1920s decor, but Prabhupada saw the great potential. As soon as he entered the vestibule and saw the ornate Italian tiles and marble archways, he began to smile. The group entered the lobby, its high ceiling covered with classically sculptured leaves, rosettes and hand-painted plaster flowers. Next, they entered the ballroom with its marble floor and high vaulted ceiling painted to resemble an early evening blue sky with clouds and stars. Special lighting gave the effect of natural starlight. At one end of the hall, 3 marble arches exactly resembled the design Prabhupada had given for the deity altars in his temples. 3 altars could be installed there, and the ballroom made into a temple with very little renovation. Prabhupada did not comment to the owner on the ballroom's suitability, but to the devotees it was obvious. So Prabhupada ki jai. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya.
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 Bhagavatam, Canto 5, Chapter 8, entitled The Character of Bharat Maharaj, text number 8.
Yes.
Tasyahava ena kunaka uchar tasman kita nijabhimana shahar ahastat pushana palana lalana krinana mudyanena niyama sahayama purusha paricharyadaya dikair kasha kati payaneha ganena virjamana Kila Sarva Evo Devasam. Do we do the word for word, or do we skip it these days?
We do.
Tasya of that king.
Of that king.
Ha, va, indeed. Ena Kunake,
in
the deer calf,
the deer calf,
Uchai, greatly, Tasman, in this. Kita Nija Abhimanasya, who accepted the calf as his own son.
who accepted the calf as his own son.
Every day. Tat Poshana, maintaining that calf. Palana, protecting from dangers. Lalana, raising it or showing love to it by kissing and so on. Drinana, petting it in love. Anujyanena, by such attachment. Atmaniyama, his personal activities for taking care of the body. Sahayama, with his spiritual duties such as non-violence, tolerance and simplicity. Purusha Paricharya Adaya, worshipping the Supreme Personality of Godhead and performing other duties. Eka Ekasha, every day. Katipayena, only a few. Mahaganena, days of time. Viyujamana, being given up. Kila, indeed. Sarve, all. Eva, certainly. Udavasam, became destroyed. Translation: gradually Bharat Maharaj became very affectionate toward the deer. He began to raise it and maintain it by giving it grass. He was always careful to protect from the attacks of tigers and other animals. When it itched, he petted it, and in this way, he always tried to keep it in a comfortable condition. He sometimes kissed it out of love. Being attached to raising the deer, Bharat Maharaj forgot the rules and regulations for the advancement of spiritual life, and he gradually forgot to worship the Supreme Personality of Godhead. After a few days, he forgot everything about his spiritual advancement. Gradually, Bharat Maharaj became very affectionate toward the deer. He began to raise it and maintain it by giving it grass. He was always careful to protect it from the attacks of tigers and other animals. When it itched, he petted it. And in this way, he always tried to keep it in a comfortable condition. He sometimes kissed it out of love. Being attached to raising the deer, but Maharaj Bharat forgot the rules and regulations for the advancement of spiritual life. And he gradually forgot to worship the Supreme Personality of Godhead. After a few days, he forgot everything about his spiritual advancement. From this we can understand how we have to be very cautious in executing our spiritual duties by observing the rules and regulations and regularly chanting the Hare Krishna Maha Mantra. If we neglect doing this, we will eventually fall down. We must rise early in the morning, bathe, attend Mangalarti, worship the deities, chant the Hare Krishna mantra, study the Vedic literatures, and follow all the rules prescribed by the acharyas and the spiritual master. If we deviate from this process, we may fall down. Even though we may be very highly advanced, as stated in Bhagavad Gita, Yagya Dana Tapa Karma Na Tyajyam Karyam Evata Yagyo Danam Tapaschaiva Pavanani Manishanam. Acts of sacrifice, charity, and penance are not to be given up, but should be performed. Indeed, sacrifice, charity, and penance purify even the great souls. Even if one is in the renounced order, he should never give up the regulative principles. He should worship the deity and give his time and life to the service of Krishna. He should also continue following the rules and regulations of austerity and penance. These things cannot be given up. One should not think oneself very advanced simply because one has accepted the sannyas order. The activities of Bhagavad Maharaj should be carefully studied for one's spiritual advancement. Om Agyanantamarandasya Kananjanasla Chachurmata Minantasmashigurve Namaha Kamproti Vachalam Pamalaya Tegrim Yakipatamam Vandeshiram Dintaranam Jai Shri Krishna
Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda,
Shri
Shri Advaita Gadadhara, Shri Vasudeva Gaura Bhaktivedanta, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama, Hare Hare.
Gradually, Maharaj Bharat became very affectionate toward the deer. He began to raise it and maintain it by giving it grass. He was always careful to protect it from the attacks of tigers and other animals. When it itched, he petted it, and in this way, he always tried to keep it in a comfortable condition. He sometimes kissed it out of love. Being attached to raising the deer, Maharaj Bharat forgot the rules and regulations for the advancement of spiritual life, and he gradually forgot to worship the Supreme Personality of Godhead. After a few days, he forgot everything about his spiritual advancement. So this purport is very clear, it's very powerful actually. We should not give up our acts of sacrifice, charity, penance, because they purify even great souls. Even those who are great souls, they don't give up. It's not that because one is liberated from the effects of the three modes, or now that we're liberated, we don't have to do anything. It's not being supported here. And Prabhupada specifically mentions we should be very cautious in executing our spiritual duties by observing the rules and regulations and regularly chanting the Hare Krishna Maha Mantra. So if we neglect doing these things, we will eventually fall down. So we may have so much momentum because of our good service or sadhana, etc. But if we don't keep it up, we eventually will fall down. There was one devotee who did have trouble once, and I asked him, how did you give up chanting around? He said, I didn't give him up. And we were actually driving in the car, and he put the radio on, and he just gradually put it down lower and lower and lower. He said it was just like that. So in other words, it wasn't something intentionally he did, but because of his inability to keep a good practice up, then it just kind of faded out. And before he knew it, he realized he wasn't doing it any longer, he was totally absorbed in something else. So that's what it can be like. We might not even notice it, and then before you know it, we're not chatting around, we're not going to the morning program, we're not reading Prabhupada's books, we're not listening to lectures by spiritual masters, by Srila Prabhupada, and then we wonder why we're not inspired. The inspiration comes from hearing. This is it's no accident that this word Shravanam is the first thing. Devotional service begins with Shravanam Kirtan, hearing. So this is something which we always have to keep working at, because if we're not working at focusing our mind on hearing, we're going to be hearing the mind. We're always going to be hearing something. There's always something in the mind. There's no void in the mind. No void anywhere. Prabhupada said, there's living entities everywhere. Where is the void? In the Bhagavad Gita, Sarvakatana, Krishna says there's living entities everywhere. So as soon as we stop engaging the mind in Krishna service, something else will come in. Because we're in the material world, then the material energy is going to give us some idea to distract us from our devotional practices. Prabhupada said it's difficult to be a devotee in the material world, because the material world is not geared up for that. But when we go back to Godhead, it will be very easy. So therefore, as I hope we were saying in class the other day, that Krishna is especially kind, especially attracted by those trying to be a devotee in the material world, because he knows how difficult it is. So this is his kindness, that although we've turned our back on him and we try to remember him, then he's very keen to help us remember him. But sometimes we're quite stubborn, and no matter what we know we should be doing, we just don't do it. Because in Kali Yuga, the effects of Kali Yuga on the living entity is that it makes us lazy, misguided, unlucky, and above all, always disturbed. So So because we're lazy in controlling our mind, we're lazy in our practices, sometimes devotees don't even chant the full Maha Mantra. Don't even chant Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Now that's all Lord Chaitanya is asking us to do. Everything else is just to support that, so at least we should be doing that. So each and every individual devotee should just carefully make sure they're chanting the full Maha Mantra, make sure they're hearing that, and when the mind wanders, bring it back. It takes some practice, but it's possible. And Arjuna gives this argument that it's more difficult to control the mind than control the raging wind, and Krishna agrees with him. He doesn't say, "I talk nonsense." He agrees with him and says, "Yeah." So that means that to actually go and control the raging wind is actually more possible than controlling the mind. It says by suitable practice and detachment. So anybody would like to offer, what could that be? Suitable practice and detachment?
Going to the morning program.
That'd be a good start. But just going to the morning program is not enough, because even a fly could be in here. Sometimes you see a spider on the floor, it's the morning program. The whole day doesn't even know it's here. It's not just a case of attendance record, although that's a good start. So suitable practice and detachment. Anyone like to offer something there?
Yes, there is actually this purport in Bhagavad Gita, especially on this verse, suitable practice and detachment. Arjuna is complaining that it's not possible to control the mind, and Krishna says, by suitable practice and detachment is possible. And in the purport, Prabhupada says two things. One is taking prasadam, is the diet, and another thing is hearing about Krishna more and more and more with attention.
Yes, so by hearing more about Krishna, we immunize ourselves against the ill effects of Kali Yuga. So of course, if we're doing our service, it doesn't mean to say that we can't do our service because we're hearing. It's like we're trying to cook and we've got a bead bag in one hand and a book in the other hand. And we're trying to read and chant, and that's not what it means. Our service is connected. If when it's time to chant, don't be thinking something else. Because when you're thinking something else, when it comes time to do that something else, your mind will be somewhere else. This is what it's always like. It's like one devotee used to give this example of the Sunday feast. And so someone serves out the sabji rice, dal, and puris. And so you're taking that, but your mind's thinking, if I eat too much of this, there won't be enough of the sweet rice. I hope there's some sweet rice. There's too many people in the queue there. I'm going to go up and get mine first, and then I hope there's seconds of this. So rather than just sitting down and taking it, there was one devotee, he later became a sannyasi, that he liked to serve prasadam, and he would always try to make some arrangement that he'd be there to serve prasadam, and whatever was left he would take that, and he was so satisfied with it. I personally have experienced when we've been at a festival, as in a temple festival, and you maybe have been fasting. Sometimes you've been fasting, and so you've been fasting all day, temple program been there, the big kirtan, and you're hungry and thirsty, and you're sitting there thinking, I hope I don't get selected to serve prasadam. Has anybody ever thought like that? Anybody ever thought like that and didn't put their hand up? So sometimes it can be like that, because you're thinking, oh, it's been a long day, I want to get some prasadam. And then your name gets called and you think, drat, I need to go and serve now. But then if you just adopt your state of mind and think, well, you can just serve the devotees, serve for their pleasure. Why you always have to put your tongue first, Why not put somebody else's first? This is what it's all about. Practice of philosophy. The philosophy says if you water the root, the whole tree gets nourished. So this is pleasing Krishna, serving the devotees, that's watering the root. So you make that mental adjustment, and then it actually becomes ecstatic. It becomes really pleasing, and to the point where you can get carried away and you're just, whatever's left over you're quite happy with. But if we remain attached to simply, we have to have this or we're not playing the game, then we just remain on a very kind of childish level of devotional service. So sometimes it's good to put our mind in the situation where it gets a taste for devotional service rather than it's making all the demands and we have to follow it. And this is the big mistake that we often make. We think we're in control of the mind, but the mind's controlling us. And then someone tries to give good advice and we just argue back. We give so many reasons why we don't want to engage or whatever. But actually, if we read Prabhupada's books, then it makes it very clear what we should do. It's just putting it into practice. So practice means perfect. It's not that we read the book and okay, that's it, we've got it all sussed and we get it right now the first time. We have to keep on practicing and trying to improve, always better service, ABS. Not that, okay, I've done enough and now it's time to just do what I want. The devotee never comes to that point because that means that's what we've been hoping for a lot long, and we haven't yet come to the point where we're doing it for Krishna. So to do it for Krishna means that, doesn't mean to say that we have to kill ourselves in the process. Doesn't mean to say that we neglect to do the things which nourish us in devotional service, but regulation is important. From regulation, then the mind can become steady, it can become controlled, and it becomes our friend. That's why we attend the morning program, that's why we chant a fixed number of rounds a day, so that no matter what the mind says, we're doing this. Otherwise, we're letting the mind in, the mind's ruling the whole show. And even if we've done that, or if we're in that situation, then we can change it, we just have to get back into the regulation. And that proves that the process works. We may stray from the process to some degree, but you just start practicing it again and it still works. Just like you might not have had a bath for weeks, but as soon as you step into the shower, you'll start getting clean again. So Krishna will never let you down. We may let each other down sometimes because we have our conditioning, we have our imperfect senses, tendency to cheat, illusion. We have these 4 defects of the conditioned souls, but if we follow Guru, Sadhu and Shastra, then we will never be let down. And this is the example here given by Maharaj Bharat, that he was emperor of the whole planet. So advanced devotee, so expert Raj Rishi, that the planet was named after him. You know, we heard of many empires like the Roman Empire, the Ottoman Empire, etc., the British Empire, but the planet's never been named after any of these people. But it was named after Bharat, who was such a great personality, both in the material and in the spiritual sense. But even within a few days here, Prabhupada says here, that after a few days he forgot everything about his spiritual advancement. So it was only a few days, it wasn't like a long, long time. He became captivated and he lost his sense of discrimination. And even though he was emperor of the world and he renounced that, then he walked into a trap himself. He became affectionate to one vulnerable animal. He lost his sense of discrimination there. So that might happen to us at times, but what we have, which can help us, is Sadhu Sangha, Vaishnava Sangha. We have association of devotees. So as much as possible, we should try to get that association. Don't hide ourselves away from that association. Either online, if we can get that association, or if we have the opportunity for physical association, then we should make sure that we get that in our service or morning or evening programs, festivals. So this devotional, this Vaishnava Sangha, is foodstuffs of the Vaishnava. Sudabhakita Charana Renu, Bhajna Anukula. The dust from the lotus feet of the pure devotees. This is favourable for devotional service. And the association of the Vaishnavas is what nourishes. Because everybody, I get by with a little help from my friends. So no one is an island. You try to be on your own, try to be strong on your own. This is Maya's already got you. She's got you thinking that you can do it on your own. And from that it just goes down. It's very difficult to back up again. And then because nobody even notices that, I wouldn't say that, but it's one of the most important aspects of our life, because even if we have difficulty practicing our regulated activities, then in association with Vaishnavas, then we can become inspired again. And we all need that at times. It's not that some people never need it, they're okay, they're really staunch and fixed up. Well, there's examples in the Bhagavatam, there's examples in history and in modern times where devotees who were fixed up fell by the wayside. So therefore we should try to stay fixed up ourselves and try to help others. The old saying is, when you help someone get to the top of the hill, you automatically get there yourself. If we're thinking about ourselves more of the time, then that type of selfishness is not even good in spiritual life. If we really want to be thinking of ourselves, then help others in their devotional service. Selfishness is like a kind of greed that is never satisfied. And have you ever noticed that those who are the more selfish, they're actually more unhappy? They're thinking, oh, I'm just going to look after myself, but they're never secure, they're never happy, they're never satisfied. So to become selfless is actually doing yourselves a big favour. If you want to really be selfish, then be selfless. That will do yourself the best good. Yeah, it was on Every Town and Village programme. We used to go around all the towns and villages in Scotland and north of England for many years, and I met this old man. He was in his 90s, and he seemed very happy in life. I said, "What's your secret?" He said, "The less I think about myself, the better." I thought, that's good. I'm going to take that one on board. That's Krishna telling me. There's a lesson for you. We're thinking about ourselves, all that happens is our problems magnify, and then they get out of proportion, and we just get all tangled up in it. But when we take our mind off of thinking of our body, mind, our situation, how terrible it is, etc., and try to think of others who are less fortunate, who need Krishna consciousness, and try to see the bigger picture, then we become immediately relieved from that. Because just in meditation, we're not that body, but we're just meditating all the time. We're not the mind, but we're meditating on it by following it all the time. So when we take our eye off of that and put on it the goal of Krishna consciousness, so we have a practice. So this practice of Krishna consciousness is a good start, just like the Hopi Guru was saying, show up at the temple, so that's a good start. And then to put your hand in the bead bag and start chanting the Maha Mantra, that's step 2. That's a good one. But then the goal is to become attentive, to become offenseless. If we don't have that goal, then we're not actually going to be aware of how these offences are actually manifesting in our life. So there's 3 stages of chanting. What's the first stage, anybody?
Offensive.
Yeah, offensive stage. So that means when we begin chanting, we're going to be committing offences. We didn't even know that offences existed. But we shouldn't become dismayed thinking, oh, I'm an offensive chanter, I better stop. No, practice is like somebody goes to learn to drive, and they can't learn to drive within the first 2 minutes and think, oh, well, that's it, I'm not a driver. You have to learn. It takes a bit of time. And in due course, if the person passes you in the test, then that's you qualified to drive. And so the next stage is clearing stage. So that's the stage when we start to become aware that, yeah, actually I'm committing these offences. I didn't even know I was doing that, I wasn't even aware of them. But so before that, we have to become aware of what these offences are. And therefore Prabhupada stated them, 10 offences, and they all originate from inattentiveness. So that's a constant endeavour to be attentive to chanting. When it's time to chant, then chant. We're not going to be doing something else. Whatever else we have to do later, who knows if that'll even be later, who knows if there will be a later. So when you're there to chant, just chant. And if the mind says can't, then just say Hare Krishna. And I did it. Don't let the mind take you away. Just bring the mind back in. It doesn't have to be a physical thing where we're banging the head off the wall or something like that. That's also the mind. Just hearing and chanting. Prabhupada said it's so simple we can miss it, and we do it. Every day we miss it. Not saying that about everybody sitting here, but I know myself that there's so much room for improvement. You find yourself, you've been thinking of something, you've been chanting for some time, and you realise, I haven't even been listening to this for the last who knows how long. And then just got, as soon as you become aware you're not attentive, then just bring the mind back to the Maha Mantra, just keep on doing it. And the more we practice that, then the more will happen is that the mind, when it comes time for japa, will just do the japa. And then what happens is the other aspects of our life will become more conscious of as well. And this hearing process, when someone's given some instruction, we'll be more attentive to that. We'll realise the importance of following that clearly. So this is Prabhupada is emphasising here that we should not give up at any stage following the rules and regulations, not give up our practice. And if we deviate from this process, we may fall down, even though we may be very highly advanced. So we shouldn't become thinking that we're comfortable in this material world, because it doesn't take much to upset our comfort. Naturally, because we're spirit, soul, eternal, full of bliss and knowledge, and we find it very austere in this material world, we're always comfort seeking in some way or another, and we're not looking to perform austerities which are not necessary. So what would that mean? Unnecessary austerities? Anybody? In principle, if not, anything else right now?
Taking a shower in the snow in the morning.
Huh?
Taking shower in the snow.
Yeah, but what happens if that was the only option? Because one time in the Brahmachari ashram, the showers weren't working, we had to take a bucket bath out in the snow. So in principle, what would it be?
Don't do any austerities, they're not required.
No, which are not required. Yeah.
Devotional service.
Exactly. What should you had your hand up to?
I was going to say putting broken glass in your boot.
Yeah, that's not necessary. To put your broken glass in your shoes. If you wonder why a coach has said that, it's because Prabhupada made that comment that devotee had taken it upon himself to perform some austerities which weren't anything related to devotional service. He just decided he was going to become very austere. And Prabhupada says, well, why don't you put broken glass in your shoe? So we're not actually performing unnecessary austerities. Sometimes devotional service is not austere at all, and other times it might be austere, but the main thing is we have a goal. Our goal is to become lovers of Krishna through this process of chanting, and try to get others to take up the process of chanting. And everything is just centered around that. The prasadam is there to keep us going, keep body and soul together, so we can continue with this. The classes are there to convince us to keep up this process, and all the other activities we do, the buildings we have, are there to serve this purpose. If we don't engage in this purpose, then it all becomes meaningless. So whatever service we're doing, we can see it in relation to furthering Lord Chaitanya's mission. There was one godbrother of Srila Prabhupada who was criticizing Srila Prabhupada's disciples. And Prabhupada, he remarked that this person has not done anything to further Lord Chaitanya's mission 1 inch. So at least if we can further the mission 1 inch, whatever we can do in some service here related to that, and then that keeps us inspired, and keep hearing from Srila Prabhupada, hearing from our own spiritual masters and other devotees who inspire us. But be regulated in that, not that when we're supposed to be doing service, then we decide we're going to listen to a lecture. It's like one time, there was one devotee who was very capable of book distribution, And I said to him, well, what are you going to do for the Christmas marathon? He says, oh, I think I'm going to listen to some Prabhupada lectures. It's like, well, you're going to listen to Prabhupada lectures and he's telling you, go out and books. So what would be the value of that? You know, when we're supposed to do one thing, then we should do that one thing. And so even within the material world, people use this to get organized in life. That when we're supposed to be chanting, then we chant. When we're supposed to be doing service, we do service. When we're supposed to be taking prasadam, take prasadam. When we're supposed to be resting, we rest. And this simple regulation is there so that we can carry on day after day, making incremental advancement in devotional service. And it definitely works. So, and keeping in the association of devotees, whether that be living in a temple or whether if you're living out there, to stay in touch with other devotees who are out there with you, or stay in touch online, or when lockdown is not there, to visit the temple, attend programs, and support the preaching mission in some way. And this way we remain connected to Lord Chaitanya. So Lord Chaitanya's mission is to spread the holy name to every town and village, and whatever we can do to serve that mission according to our capacity, then that is very pleasing to Lord Chaitanya. And as we get a taste for doing that, we want to increase that capacity naturally. So we'll just stop there. Is anyone got any questions or comments?
One question. The comment was, Prabhupada, the Burjam was saying this in members of Srila Prabhupada, one of the things we remember Prabhupada saying was, something is better than nothing. Because you understand about at least trying to do something. So something is better than nothing. Because you may be coming to a big mountain and think, I can never do this. You can take one step up the mountain, and after you've taken one step, you can take another one. So maybe you can't take 2 steps up the mountain, but you can take 1. So you can just keep doing that. And then the other thing was, when you were talking about austerity, is one devotee said to Srila Prabhupada, he can't get on with this particular devotee. And Srila Prabhupada said, well, that is your austerity. This devotee, to cooperate and work with this devotee is your austerity. So if you get distracted by putting broken glass in your boots and doing other things, and you don't have good relationships with the devotees, then you've missed the boat. You've missed the whole point. That is the main austerity. Just get along with everyone, be nice with everyone, try and be helpful. And that's the... Actually, that was the question, rather than the comment.
That's a good point. This Vaishnava Seva, Vaishnava Sangha is so important that unless Prabhupada said this is your austerity, he was particularly talking to 2 devotees, for those who might not be able to hear online. Prabhupada was particularly referring to some devotees who couldn't get along, and he said that's your austerity. So materially we all come from different backgrounds, and perhaps none of us would ever cross paths. It's like I remember 2 devotees, one was particularly like bourgeoisie, and the other one was proletariat. And these are just like, you've got someone who's upper middle class and someone who's working class, socialistic. And these 2 would practically never cross paths, or if they did, then it would probably be in some kind of conflict or something like that. But these devotees, they had the austerity of working together for many years, distributing hundreds of thousands of books, collecting millions of pounds, and furthering Lord Chaitanya's movement, because they put something in the centre, which was Krishna consciousness, which was Prabhupada's desire. And they tolerated so much. And now they actually have affection for each other, whereas previously that was not possible. So if we put Krishna in the centre, then our material condition can be overcome. When Krishna is out of the centre, then that's when difficult comes. And this is also there for those who are grihastas. When Krishna is in the centre, then there can be peace, there can be harmony, there can be cooperation. But when one's trying to dominate another, or one's trying to forward their version of something, then it becomes a difficult situation, conflict. So So simply to keep Krishna in the center and remember that we're spirit souls, eternal servants of Krishna, engage in devotional service. Then, even in the spiritual world, actually, devotees don't always agree on things, but it's in devotional service. They don't fall out over it and have a punch up. So this is another practical thing, is that rather than try to be appreciated all the time, just try to appreciate others. By trying to appreciate others, naturally you become appreciated. Similarly with respect, if we're always looking to be respected, then generally we don't get that. But if we're respecting others, then that invites respect, because someone who's respecting becomes a respectable person. Just like these gangster types, they're always looking for respect. If someone disrespects them in some way, which is a real mental thing, who knows what's in their mind, what they're expecting from people, then they punish them or take them out in some way. But what have they done to be respected? Why should anybody respect them? It's just foolishness. So yeah, we can think, well, we may be looking for respect, but if people were aware of some of the things we did which were not so respectful, then would we still be looking for respect? Would we think that we deserve it? So better we give respect. And in this way, and this is no small thing, because by giving respect to the devotees, and giving respect to all living entities actually, then this is one of the key things for being able to chant the holy name in a humble state of mind. If we're always looking down on people, or always thinking we've got a superior point of view, then it's not going to be possible to chant in a humble state of mind. And it's interesting to note that pride is something which, even of the topmost devotees, Krishna, he will act in such a way as to curb even the topmost devotees' pride. It's something which turns Krishna off. But his humility, Krishna himself is actually very humble. See, he's driving Arjuna's chariot. So many different situations he puts himself in. So, I'll just finish with this, is that I hope you made a nice point there, that to take one step. So this is why some regular practice every day. Don't try to conquer, we're going to spread Krishna consciousness within the next 3 days, come up with some amazing idea. We're going to spread it all over the world within the next day or two. Just do a little bit every day, just keep on watering that plant, that Bhaktilata beach, and it will grow and it will grow and it will grow. Otherwise, if it's all or nothing, then it might be nothing. So just keep on chipping away at that false ego by engaging in our real ego, our real identity as devotional servants. Okay, any last comments or questions? It's going to be with the key.
Grace Prabhupada, Prabhu ki
Jai.
Jai.